When you walk into the interview room, we want to believe that the people across from us, they're telling us the truth about the job, about the responsibilities, the money. But sometimes it's not true. And these are some of the reasons why. First, the hiring manager is not in the interview. So you don't even know who your direct supervisor is going to be. You do not know what their personality is going to be like. Will you be able to tolerate them? Will there be a conflict in personality that will make your life miserable for the next 6 to 12 months while you're looking for a new job? You don't know that. Is there going to be a training program? How are they going to manage and handle you once you start working on day one? What is the expectation? You don't really know that. Your aim sitting in that interview is, let me secure this job. That's what you want to do. And unless you're asking thoughtful questions at the end, you're not going to know. When it comes to the job responsibilities, the job duties, your exact focus, the first week, the first month, the first year, you're not going to have a true sense on the scope, on what's going to be expected from you. That can also lead to frustration. That could lead to you feeling like you've been misled and you need to get out of there. Number two is hiring managers can seem misleading about workplace flexibility. Now, most government jobs, they have flexibility. So you can adjust your hours somewhat, depending on the agency, depending on your supervisor. But when it comes to telework, a lot of times that's up to your supervisor. That's up to leadership's discretion. So you might be in a job that has telework eligible on the job announcement, but when you inquire about it, they're like, well, your performance isn't really where it needs to be. Let's go ahead and give it 6 more months. Let's revisit this topic after 12 more months. And you're thinking this whole time, I need to be at the house at least 3 days a week. And that's what I thought I was getting coming into this position. But now you're throwing me a curveball and you're telling me I can't work from home. After a year, you'll think about it? That's not a good way to start off any type of job. Then there's the 100% remote work jobs. After so many applications, you finally secured it and it feels great. You feel like you're on top of the world. And then you get an email saying that you have to live 30 to 60 miles away from the office. How are you 100% remote, but you have to be within a specific geographical area? For a lot of people, that doesn't make sense. That's not going to work. Because there are a lot of people that want to travel. They want to travel around and work from any state. And even when the government job announcement states that that's a possibility, they can still flip it around on you towards the end. So you always want to be aware of what is written exactly in that final job offer. Does it say 100% remote with no restrictions? Now, 100% remote generally means within the continental United States. Then we have travel frequency. On government job announcements, it shows how often you're expected to travel under the travel required section. This may be something that they talk to you about during the interview, but not always. Sometimes it's skipped over. And even if a job has no travel required, do not be surprised that in a couple of weeks, somebody comes up to you and say, hey, are you going to be attending that conference in Chicago next weekend? And you're like, what are you talking about? Chicago is like a 5-hour plane ride from me. I'm not going to Chicago. But the expectation in the office is that people go to the conference. So small things like that can throw a wrench in your plans later on. There are people that have no issues with just dropping everything, hopping on a plane and going to Chicago or wherever to go to a conference. But there's other people that are raising kids that have other responsibilities that prohibit them from traveling. And then there's job announcements that say 20% travel required, but you get into the job and they're like, no, there's no travel required. We just put that in there just in the event we need to travel, we're covered. And that doesn't make a lot of sense either. Then we have promotion potential. This is an important area because I don't think you're going to want to stay in a job that doesn't allow you to grow or develop or advance or have a chance at a higher salary. You're going to feel stagnant at a certain point. Now, it should say in the job announcement whether or not there is promotion potential, but it's not going to be automatic. And if you're in the interview and they're talking to you like, yeah, this is a GS9 to GS12 position, so after 12 months, you should be a GS11. If they speak to you like it's an automatic, I would say that's a red flag because it's not. This is something that is assessed throughout the year as you're performing, and it is either given to you or it's not at the end of the year based on your supervisor. So that's why it's so important to have these conversations with your supervisor about expectations. What are your expectations? You've given me these duties, and my plan is to go ahead and attain them at a high level. But my high level and your high level, they could be different. So let's talk about it. Is 70% compliance rate for this quarter? Moving from 50 to 70%, is that enough? Is that going to be okay for you? Are you expecting 100% every single quarter? Have that outlined, have that written down, and keep the channel of communication open when discussing how your performance is doing throughout that year. This is another one that I've heard. During the interview, the hiring manager says, I know that this is for a GS-13 position, but in about 6 months, we're going to open up a GS-14, and it's going to be doing pretty much the same duties. So we're going to make an effort to see if we can put you in that position later down the line. The problem is, later down the line is not guaranteed, and sometimes later down the line never happens. So you have this false expectation that you have a promotion coming up in the near future, and you really don't. Another area that you're blind to is the turnover rate. A lot of hiring managers are not quick to admit that their office has a revolving door, that people are quitting before they even hit their 12-month mark. Nobody wants to talk about that. This usually happens either for one or two reasons. Either the leadership is poor, it's a toxic work environment, or it could be that there's very challenging tasks that do not match the level of pay. So they want you to do work at a GS-14 level, but they're going to pay you GS-9. So people are not going to stick around for that. People are going to be quick to leave. It's hard to find this out about an agency or an office unless you get on LinkedIn and you start messaging people and having a conversation about what is the culture like in that office. How has your experience been working for that agency for the last 2 or 3 years, whatever the case is. For example, we can find somebody that works in the Department of Justice in OGC, the Office of General Counsel, and we can ask them, how has your experience been? How have you liked working there? This is kind of called an informational interview. Not everybody's going to give you their time, but some people will, and you should continue to try to have these conversations if possible. Now, like I mentioned earlier, most of these issues can be identified if you're asking the right questions at the end of the interview. At the end of the interview, the hiring manager or whoever's leading the interview should ask you, do you have any questions for us? This is your opportunity to ask thoughtful questions about the position, about the hiring manager, about the challenges that they are experiencing in their office. Do not let this time go to waste. If you are still looking for a government job, you should know that when you first get a government job, you are on probation. This period of time is usually 12 months. In some agencies, it can be 24 months. People are a little weary and nervous during this time because they can't get fired. They can get terminated for pretty much anything. And if you want to know about a person who was terminated during probation so that you can avoid it, then I want you to watch this video next. If you would like to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.